So in these videos so far, we've looked a lot about sort of layering individual sounds and ways of doing that. But why not think outside the box a little bit with your drum programming and actually layer up your hits with synthesizer parts? If you think about it, there's kind of like a synth equivalent of every type of drum sound. Kicks are a bit like basses, snares are a bit like sort of synth stabs, and little insistent parts like rim shots or conga loops are a bit more like sort of sequence parts. And in this video, what we're going to do is to look at exactly what happens when you make that relationship a direct one. So here I've got some beats and some synths. Let's hear the beats in blue first of all. Okay, so first of all, let's just ignore the kick sort of part that I've converted into a synth for a second, and let's focus instead on this rim shot sequence part instead. What I've done is to basically convert the rimshot part down to a sequence part, which is a tweaked version of a preset from the ES2. Let's hear these two things together. And what's nice about that is that you get the sort of spikiness of that rim shot sort of kicking off at the beginning of that sequence part. That's a nice little relationship. Let's look now at the clap and this sort of stab synth that I've got together as well. Let's hear those two things together. And again, there's a nice sort of mid-range clash there. Those two things work really well together. So let's hear that with the kick drum as well. Okay, and these percussive synth parts are working really well. Okay, let's now look at the kick drum and the bass. What I've done is to set up the ES1 to provide a bass line. Let's hear that with the kick. Okay, everyone knows that 4 to the floor bass parts don't work well, and if we put that in with the rest of the track, we'll hear that in action. Sure enough, that sounds dreadful. So I've got a couple of alternatives here. Let's just open up the ES1 for a second and have a look at the sound itself. One thing I could do, in order to sort of cement these two things together, would be to turn the bass line into a real sort of sub part, just so it acts as a sort of little pitched trigger for the kick drum. So you can see that if I drop the cutoff frequency a lot, so we just get this sort of sub-bass tone, it works really well like that. Alternatively, I can open up the cutoff frequency and simply move the bass line along. We've still got that relationship. But we get around the problem of the whole part just really lacking movement. Let's hear all of that. Okay, as you'd expect, because they're playing the same parts, these individual relationships are very tight now, but we can cement them even further by basically treating these little pairs of sounds to the same effects treatments. So let's take first of all this rim shot and saw sequence thing, and we'll send that into a stereo delay. And let's just sort of set some settings here, which will be appropriate for the two sounds. And then let's look at the clap and synth stab. And again, we're going to treat those to the same effect. This time a reverb on auxiliary bus number 2. Let's just use gold verb here and again do a little tweaking. Okay, that should do it. Okay, it's a nice big bold treatment. Let's hear all of that now. Okay, so by effectively using these synths as percussive parts, we get this super tight integration between the drums and the pitch components in a track.